Rock and roll.
Welcome, everybody, to Survive in Advance on the Grizzly True Sports Network. I'm your co-host for Survive in Advance, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I want to welcome my co-host, 1981 national champion with the Indiana Hoosiers, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
Doing great today, Mike. Looking forward to talking football today.
All right.
As
For the
usual.
first 20 minutes or so, we will have a special guest from the Jets Factor podcast on the Grizzly True Sports Network. And his name is CJ DeSimmone. How you doing, CJ?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thank you so much for having me on today.
Oh, well, I always like to have somebody on whose team is more pathetic than mine. It makes me feel better, and I don't get made fun of as much.
I knew that was coming.
All right.
Right out of the gate. Go right for the gut, Mike. Thanks.
All right. So today we're
Well,
going
hey,
to discuss.
I'll tell you what.
What?
Go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead.
No, I'm stealing your thunder, so if you want to go ahead and announce, but
I thought you were
go
going to
ahead.
say something witty, but you probably won't.
No.
Today, our topics are going to be the NFL new head coaching hires. We'll go through that with CJ here over the next 20 minutes or so. And then we're going to break into ranking the top 8 quarterbacks in the NFL playoffs this year, or left in the NFL playoffs. But first, Steve, you want to go ahead and get us started?
Yeah, I do. You guys are the experts and geniuses, so let me ask the questions. And let's just go down the list of the guys that have been hired. And CJ, since you're on the line, let's just start with the Jets. Adam Gase, really?
Yeah, it's a very. No, I can tell you something right now. Adam Gase was definitely not my choice. To be quite honest with you, I have preferred Mike McCarthy because all of the tea leaves actually were pointing to Mike McCarthy, which were very, very interesting. You know, Mike McCarthy comes out publicly and says that the Jets job is the only job that he wants that he wants. He cancels his interview with Cleveland. He canceled any other potential interviews. He goes and he takes himself off the market to go for the New York Jets. To me, I think that, and I've heard this morning on a couple of different radio shows, that I think that this was more of a meeting in the middle. And I'll explain to you why. I think that Christopher Johnson really wanted Mike McCarthy, but I think that Mike McCagnon was leaning toward the Matt Rule factor. But here's an interesting caveat with that. They were not going to give Matt Rule control over his staff, which means that they felt that him coming out of college, Mike McCagnon and Brian Heimerdinger wanted to go ahead and actually pick his offensive and defensive staff for him. And as a head coach, you really don't want that kind of power taken away from you. So I have zero problem with Matt Rule turning down the Jets head coaching job. So that left them with Adam Gase. Now, an interesting caveat here is also Todd Monken, somebody who's been flying under the radar, who the Jets had already interviewed. I'm surprised why he was not even given any type of consideration. But supposedly there are unconfirmed rumors that the Jets are possibly looking at him to come in as offensive coordinator for Adam Gase. With that could possibly be a potential softening point, so to speak, because Jets management really has a very daunting task in front of them. You have to now sell to the Jets fan base the rationale behind hiring Adam Gase, number one. Number two, Mike McCagnon and Christopher Johnson will now also have to answer the questions about why was Mike McCarthy not considered in the conversation. Yes, you wanted an offensive mind. Yes, you wanted someone to work with a young quarterback. Yes, you wanted the ability to be able to see what Sam Darnold in this offense can bring, especially in the AFC East, being in so much flux right now. So, again, I don't feel bad for Mike McCagnon. I don't feel bad for Christopher Johnson. As a Jet fan, I hate this hire. I would love to see this crash and burn, but I do have to say one thing. If at this time next year the Jets make it to the playoffs by some stroke of a miracle, and they finish 10-6 or 9-7, and Sam Darnold does in fact show considerable amount of development under Adam Gase and company, then we're having an entirely different conversation. Then I will gladly eat my plate of crow with hot sauce and whatever else you want to throw on it. But for right now, as a Jets fan, I hate this hire. I need more information from the brass. I need more information from Christopher Johnson and Mike McCagnon as to why they felt Adam Gase was the best candidate for this job when you have a Mike McCarthy with the Super Bowl ring sitting there right there, who, again, openly said that he wanted this job.
All right, how about this? Baylor coach Matt Rule, they weren't gonna let him hire his own assistants. They're already talking about Todd Monken. Is there a possibility here that they weren't going to let McCarthy pick his own guys?
I think that the big thing when it comes to McCarthy is that they were afraid that he wanted to come in and run the whole show, Mike, to be honest with you. And I know that the Jets are a little bit gun-shy because that happened in the time with Bill Parcells. But if you really take a look at everything that happened with Bill Parcells, the Jets were not really in salary cap hell. They had a 12-4 season, the first 12-win season ever in franchise history. They had an AFC Championship appearance where if they didn't fall asleep in the fourth quarter, they probably beat the Broncos and go to the Super Bowl, and John Elway doesn't get his Super Bowl ring. You know, I mean, there's a plethora of different dominoes that we could say coulda, shoulda, woulda, but I think that the main thing is that the Johnsons were so steadfast in that they wanted equal control, they wanted equal footing, and they did not want to relinquish power. And I think that Mike McCagnon, being a GM who's on the hot seat, I don't care he's got a 2-year contract. You could sell me any kind of baloney that you want. The one thing is that he knows he's got to get it right. And if this crashes and burns, Mike McCagnon is out the door at the end of next year. There's no possible reason. There's no possible excuse for him to be retained.
So my other question is this: if you bring in Adam Gase as the head coach and you bring it in Monken as the offensive coordinator, if that happens, then I think you've got, I guess, a poor alliance because you got Gase there and you got Monken, who is in line to be the next head coach. One bad year, the way the Jets are run, they're going to get rid of Gase and bring on Monken, and I would think that would be uncomfortable for Adam Gase.
Yes and no, but Adam Gase probably coming into this job knows the score and knows the risk. Because I think that for the Jets, for them, the only exit plan that they have is that Gase has to come in and they have to be competitive and they have to win immediately. So they can't get off to a 1-4 start or a 2-5 start or even an 0-6 start. Per se, and the offense is struggling and the defense is giving up a ton of points. You know, they can't have that start. So Adam Gase, right away, when he walks into that press conference, he's going to assume the scarlet letter in the front and the bullseye in the back, because he is going to be expected to do things as soon as he walks through this door that, to me, the Jets could have avoided this hiring Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, but it was going to fail even if you hired Mike McCarthy. So,
McCarthy took himself out.
Yeah.
He just said McCarthy just said he's sitting out the year no matter what. He's not interested in any job now.
Right. Well, that's because he didn't get selected for the Jets job, and he made that announcement shortly after Adam Gase was announced as the hiring of the head coach. So I'm sure that they probably made a phone call and they probably let him know, hey, we're going to go with Adam Gase. So I'm sure that his people or his handlers had his statement all prepared one way or another, whether he was getting hired or not. So I'm sure all of that took the place in the backdrop. My concern is what kind of a staff is Adam Gase going to put together? Is he going to go and take the same mopey staff that he had with the Miami Dolphins and bring them up, and they're basically just going to change clothes? You know, that's something that I would have a tremendous issue with. Whereas if I'm an Adam Gase and I really want to sell this, or I really want to show that we want to show the Jet fans we're here to win, and we're going to preach accountability and all this other good stuff, and rah break out your pom-poms of my defensive coordinator, I'm making a phone call to Greg Williams, and I'm bringing him over here because I think that the Jets have the personnel where Greg Williams, you put him as DC. This Jets defense, as it sits with a couple more players, could be a top 10 defense.
All right,
they were almost a top 10 defense being as bad as the team was this year. So they're not that far away. It's the offense that really, really needs the help.
All right, and Mike McCarthy.
I hate to interject, but this is not the Jets factor. So we got 8 other teams.
No, because I think this is the hottest thing right now.
Oh, okay.
My thing with Mike McCarthy is he wouldn't have made it because personality-wise, I think that would have been his downfall in New York. I think he was thin-skinned in Green Bay, and I think it would have just got worse in New York. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, no, great point. I figured that's why I got to the Jets first for you, CJ. So, Freddie Kitchens, the Browns. Mike?
It makes no sense to me. I mean, I don't see why, number one, Greg Williams would have been named a head coach partway through the season, and then he goes, 5-3, and then they're going to fire him and bring Kitchens in. Now, I know that every good baker needs a kitchen, but I don't think this is a good hire here, and y'all could have giggled a little bit because I thought that was a little bit funny. But when I look at this, Greg Williams deserved this job, I think. If not, you go out and get somebody else. Kitchens has no head coaching experience, and I just don't think it's a great hire, CJ.
Yeah, I agree with you as well. I thought that Baker Mayfield and that offense really started to turn it around. Baker Mayfield was really doing well under Greg Williams, and to me, I don't understand why you let him out of the building and for Kitchens. I don't see it. Greg Williams taking over. Matter of fact, if you would have gotten rid of Hugh Jackson at the beginning of the year and popped Greg Williams in and started Baker Mayfield, this Cleveland Browns team would have made the postseason this year. I'll actually go out on a limb and say that.
They might have made the postseason. I wouldn't go on that big of a limb, but I think it is possible. But I also think it's very possible that Baker Mayfield would have had a rough start to the season. But then again, you could always say if Hugh Jackson would have had a kicker that could have made some kicks, he probably wouldn't have been fired.
Well, true. True.
All right, Steve.
Let's move on. Let's go right back and get CJ fired up again. Bruce Arians to the Bucs with Todd Bowles. Does Todd Bowles step up here, Mike?
What?
No. well, look, here's what I said on my show. There are certain coordinators that are very, very good coordinators. Exactly that. But they're not very good head coaches. Todd Bowles, very good defensive coordinator. I will give him all the props in the world. But you know what? He was not a very good head coach. Not a very good game manager.
Wait a second, CJ. This is a guy that took a horrible team to 10-6, and this team has been destroyed by the front office, not Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles is a good football coach, but when you don't, when you refuse to let the head coach shop for the groceries, it's hard to win. And I think I think anybody in New York is a failure as long as you have these idiots running the organization from the GM all the way up to the ownership. And I think the first year he came in there, I thought he should have been the coach of the year. I mean, he goes 10-6 with a team that's not very good, that doesn't have a quarterback. I think it's really hard to blame him. It's like this. I'm a Marvin Lewis fan, or not a Marvin Lewis fan, but a Bengals fan. Marvin Lewis did about what he could do with bad ownership and bad management. And if you have bad ownership and bad management, it's hard to be a successful coach. I think Bruce Arians, you'll see a significant improvement in Jameis Winston, Jameis Winston is a guy who says he was a first-round pick and he was drafted pretty high. Everybody considers him a bust, but if you look at his numbers every year, he's usually around 26 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, which is not great. Yep. But Bruce Arians has a history of working with quarterbacks such as Peyton Manning and Ben Roethlisberger. I think he can get them over the top, and I think Todd Bowles is one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL, and I think someday he'll get a shot somewhere where they'll let him coach the team, and I think you'll wish, damn, I wish we'd had different ownership instead of a different coach.
Well, I've to be honest with you, I've wanted the different ownership of this team since 2002. So you're not saying anything that I haven't already said myself. So, but as far as Todd Bowles is concerned, yeah, he has to assume some of the blames because he's had good young players sitting on the bench where he could have injected and chose to play veterans over. So I mean, there's two sides to that argument there, Mike.
All right, but this is the thing. When you have ownership that's that much in charge of things, Is it that hard to believe that maybe the GM told him who to play?
No, actually, the reason being is because in the Jets hierarchy, you have the GM and the head coach are on equal footing.
Yeah.
So they both report to the ownership, which is something that I hate in the Jets organization. But,
yeah, well, the same thing happens in Cincinnati, and I can tell you this from people I've talked to inside the Bengals organization. Chad Johnson is example. Marvin Lewis wanted to cut him after 2008. They wouldn't let him. They forced him to play him. So all I'm saying is with teams like this, like the Jets, the Bengals, the Dolphins, who are just poorly run, I think a lot of times there may be stuff there that we blame on the coach that we really don't have a clue what's going on.
Right, that's true. Yeah, there are probably a lot of conversations that happen behind closed doors that we are not privy to. So.
Yeah,
right,
and I think.
right, Mike,
what do you think of Bruce Arians, CJ?
Bruce Arians, I like Bruce Arians. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't have minded if he ended up getting the head coaching position, because maybe there would have been a possibility. Todd Bowles would have ended up being our defensive coordinator. But I don't think that Bruce Arians would have felt comfortable taking the Jets head coaching job, knowing that his best buddy in Todd Bowles just ended up being fired with that. So I think it was a matter of respect why he declined to interview with the Jets.
I think the reason he declined the interview with the Jets is because since his best buddy is Todd Bowles told him what goes on there. With the Buccaneers, they're going to let Bruce Arians run the show. And when they do that, you're going to see Drew Brees isn't getting any younger, Cam Newton ain't getting any better, and the Falcons are a mess. I think Tampa Bay makes the playoffs next year.
You know what? That would not be out of the realm of possibility. And you know what? If they did, then hey, you know what? To be another feather in Bruce Arians' cap.
All right, Stevie.
You asked my question, so okay. Let's move on to the next team.
Hey, that just means you were going to ask an awesome question, by the way. But go ahead.
I was going to ask. Yeah, it's exactly the question I was going to ask. You just beat me to the punch. I thought I was asking the questions here and let you guys be the genius.
I love when you get all butthurt. But go ahead.
You don't want me to try. You don't want me to try and be a genius in this front because I'm a basketball guy. All right, talking
ask
football,
a question.
Which means I'm a fan. I will say this. I will come out and say this as this. Mike, I have listened to you piss and moan about the Bengals and how much you want them to fail all year long to get rid of Marvin Lewis. CJ, I hear you talk about you want Gase to fail. I'm a diehard Colts fan. I have never willed my team to fail.
Because you've never had the ownership
I bet against them. I didn't pick them last week because I thought going back to Houston twice in 3 or 4 weeks to win is a very tough thing to do. I thought Houston was a little bit better than they were. But luck proved us wrong again. But you two guys, both of you, have pissed on your home teams.
Yes, we do.
Now, so you want to see them fail.
And we have every reason to do that. So go ahead.
That's why your two teams are not in the playoffs, and the Colts are
wow. Yeah.
Doing
go
good.
ahead. Are you going to ask me a question? Or are you
Here
going
we
to
go.
talk about show?
Yeah.
Because the Jets beat.
No.
Wait a
Loyal
second.
fans-
I want to
loyal
bring up
fans
this.
make great teams.
The Bengals beat the Colts, and the Jets beat the Colts this year. Go ahead, Steve.
And we're still in the playoffs, and neither one of you two are.
Yeah, but you couldn't beat us. So go ahead.
Hey, listen.
Yeah.
The Jets.
Move on.
The Jets almost blew it against the Colts. So
move on. Go to the
There's no
Cardinals.
rebuttal to that. It's just a statement, not a question. All right, Vic Fangio. Okay, here, Mike, to you. I'm going to start with you. Vic Fangio leaves the Bears, the vaunted defense of the Bears. He's their defensive coordinator. Goes to the Broncos. He takes Gary Kubiak with him, right, as his offensive coordinator. Am I correct in that?
Yes. You're the one asking the question.
Okay. Is that a good move or what?
For Vic Fangio or for the Broncos? It's a great move for Vic. He'll make a lot more money.
And the Bears.
With the Bears, it's a bad move. But, I mean, come on. In 1985, they lost Buddy Ryan. In 1986, Vince Tobin called the defense, and the defense was even better. People overrate that, I think. You got players or you don't. I think with the Broncos, my concern is they're already a defensive team. I would rather see them go with an offensive coach. Fangio has been around forever, hasn't been a head coach. I think he could be a decent coach. I'm just not sold on the pick here for the Broncos because I think you're in a division that has Andy Reid, You got, Coach Lynn with the Chargers. There's very good coaches there. And, of course, John Gruden, who everybody will beat up forever until he gets fired because he's an overrated bum. But when I look at it, I mean, it's all right.
That's how you really feel.
At least they didn't hire a retread like the Jets did.
Yeah.
And it's not a shot at
Okay,
the Jets.
CJ.
I'm just tired of watching guys who fail one place get to go to another place immediately.
Yeah, I can. You know what? I think Vic Fangio, believe it or not, for the time that he's going to go, I'm going to go the opposite of Mike. I'm going to think that I'm going to say that it's a good move for the Broncos, even though I will agree with Mike that they are a heavily defensive team. I think that if he goes and he picks a good offensive coordinator to go in there and to possibly spark Case Keenum, see if he can recreate some of that magic that he did in Minnesota. Maybe Case Keenum is not the answer. Maybe they need to go in the draft and they need to draft a future quarterback. So
that's my next question here. Did they not select Kubiak as their OC? Is he not going to Denver?
I don't even know, but it doesn't matter.
I thought
to
I'd
me
read
because
that.
In the
CJ,
end,
did I not read that somewhere, or am I making that up? Nobody knows.
I don't know. But
okay.
This is my problem.
All right.
My problem is this.
So here's
this
my question.
team,
Here's my question.
Okay.
Do the Broncos go after Flacco?
It doesn't matter because whatever they do will be wrong because John Elway has been an unmitigated failure as a GM. I mean, if they could get him off the sauce, he would be all right. But I mean, the guy has ran that team into the ground. I mean, he paid way too much money for Case Keenum. I think Case Keenum is a decent quarterback, but I mean, I think Vance Joseph was a guy who was destined to fail from the start. And my worry here is Vic Fangio has more experience than Van Joseph, but he's just been a defensive coordinator. And my fear is that Fangio is going to run into the same problems that Joseph did with the offense and with the drunk as a GM.
Wow.
Okay. What?
I've seen this in person. I can send you
I deal
pictures,
with
CJ.
the bluntness of Mike Goodpaster every day. There's no, it's as Howard Cosell used to say, he tells it like it is.
Well, give us the Cardinals next because I got an interesting thing on the Cardinals.
He does. Let's
Go
move
to the
on.
Cardinals.
Here, Mike, this was going to set you off. Cliff Kingsbury to the Cards. Is this a guy who has like the worst record at Texas Tech of all time or something like that?
Well, it's one of the worst, but I don't care about that because there's plenty of guys like Nick Saban that have been great college coaches that have failed in the NFL. My problem is this. This team has a lot of issues. Part of it is ownership also. But when you look at it, I think what's going to happen here is I think you're going to see Josh Rosen get traded. And I don't think it's any coincidence that right after Kingsbury becomes the head coach of the Cardinals, Kyler Murray says he's going to come into the NFL draft. Murray and Kingsbury. Murray almost went to Texas Tech and played for Kingsbury. They've become really good friends. I think Kingsbury, with the number 1 pick, is going to pick Kyler Murray. And the problem with that is you got guys like Bosa. You get the linebacker for Kentucky, Josh Adams, I think it is. And there's a lot of guys here that can help this team immediately. And Kingsbury, I think, is qualified. I think he's qualified because he has a great offensive mind. He's groomed guys like Mahomes. He's groomed guys like Baker Mayfield because Mayfield, the only place that gave him a shot was Texas Tech before he ended up transferring to Oklahoma. So I don't think necessarily it's a terrible hire. But I just think if they go down the road of picking Kyler Murray number 1, I think they're nuts. And it's not because I don't think Kyler Murray can't play quarterback, but I think it is because they have a lot of issues on that team that you have to fix before you worry about a quarterback. Everybody always puts the cart before the horse. You got to have an offensive line. You got to have receivers before you have a quarterback, or that quarterback invariably is going to fail.
Yeah, Mike, you know what? I can agree with you 110%. It would not surprise me at all if the Cardinals tried to deal Josh Rosen, and ended up picking Kyler Murray. I think, believe it or not, this could possibly blow up into one of the most spectacular failures the NFL has ever seen in most recent time.
Well, and I like Kyler Murray, but the problem is Kyler Murray is a guy that runs when he has to run. He's not a guy that's just going to take off running. But the problem here is with a bad offensive line. I mean, Josh Allen became, Randall Cunningham this year, and it wasn't because he wanted to. It was because he had to live. So if you put Kyler Murray, who's probably about 5'8", 5'8.5", behind a bad offensive line, you're going to turn him into a runner. You're going to get him hurt. You've already lost Josh Rosen, who I think sucks anyways. So it doesn't really matter that you lost him. But you got no backup to fill in. This team falls apart. They go 2-14, and then he gets fired.
Yeah, you know what? I would completely agree with that.
Steve?
Okay, let's move on to the next team. And this one floors me. I mean, now the Packers. Now, let me just finish here. Matt LaFleur. Now, the only LaFleur I know plays hockey. That's a hockey name. That's not even a football
LaFleur.
name.
And Lucas Weiss is listening.
Yeah,
so he'll like the Montreal
LaFleur,
Canadian, thing here.
Yeah, but anybody named LaFleur, I don't associate with football. I associate with hockey. What's going on here? I mean, I would think the Packers of all teams would have went for a marquee name.
Well, my worry is this:
it's a marquee program, and you've got what people still argue is one of the best quarterbacks in the game. Although I wouldn't argue that, but other people will. Mike, what kind of move was this? An idiot move, or was your message of the madness here?
He was the Titans' offensive coordinator, that's kind of like being, I'm a captain of a ship, but it's the Titanic. Their offense was terrible. Marcus Mariota hasn't got any better.
Another team that the Colts beat in the last 3 or 4 weeks of the season.
Okay, shut up about that.
Put them out of the
Bengals and Jets. But listen, all right, are you going to let me answer the question, or are you just going to pontificate your way through the rest of this show? I don't know if I used that word right, but I've heard it used before, and I thought it'd be a good time to give it a shot. But when I look at this, I think they're looking for a guy like Sean McVay. The only thing I worry about is this. I think Aaron Rodgers pretty much coached that team his last 4 or 5 years. I don't think McCarthy did. And the problem with bringing in a 39-year-old offensive coordinator is Aaron Rodgers is going to run this show again. It's not going to work out good. And this team's front office has screwed up so many drafts over the last 8 years. It's why they have no depth. It's why they have no players. They've got to deal with a Bears team that is getting better, a Vikings team that is at least well coached. They're probably trying to figure out how to get rid of Kirk Cousins right now. But when I look at this, I think it's a bad hire. If it would have been me, I would have went with an older guy like Pete Carmichael, the offensive coordinator for the Saints, or a Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator for the Bucs. You'd have brought in an offensive guy then, but an offensive guy that has a little bit more, as they say, street cred. But this is a horrible hire, and I will make this prediction. Aaron Rodgers will never win another Super Bowl.
Wow.
I said that all season long.
I've said
that all season long, Mike.
Yeah, but you're saying that because you think Aaron Rodgers has slipped. Aaron Rodgers hasn't slipped. Aaron Rodgers is not a leader. Aaron Rodgers is not a leader. So if you're a Green Bay fan, listen to that. He's a guy that's a me-first guy. It's why they've failed continually in the playoffs over the last decade, and it's why they'll continue to fail, because he's more worried about what's in it for him than he is about his team. You never hear Aaron Rodgers doing a Tom Brady and taking less money so they can bring a player in. So in the end, this is on Aaron Rodgers why he never wins again. He still will put up great numbers. He's still a great quarterback, but when it comes down to it, he's not Drew Brees. He's not Andrew Luck even. I know Luck hasn't won one yet, but he will over the next 5 years. And Andrew Luck is a leader. Tom Brady is a leader. Aaron Rodgers just screws Danica Patrick.
Wow.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Wow.
But I think as an NFL quarterback, you should do better than Danica Patrick.
I mean, I'm you know me, I'm an auto racing fan. I would love to have a girlfriend or wife that goes 200 miles an hour into turn one in Indianapolis.
Yeah, they would,
or
because you would be chasing them probably. But go ahead.
Or can get me Chase Elliott's autograph at Daytona. Are you kidding me? I'd be all over that.
All right. Do we have any other teams to cover? Or did you have a comment?
Yeah,
there,
we do.
I forgot about you.
Hang on. Yeah, CJ, what's your point? What's your take on the Packers move?
Well, LaFleur, really, to be honest with you, I don't think he's ready to be a head coach. Mike did make a few great points. I think that, with Aaron Rodgers.
Don't say that. Wait. Don't say that.
Because Mike's always right.
Don't say
Be
that.
quiet, Steve. It's why you ask the questions. You don't answer them.
Go ahead,
this is what I think. Seriously, just listening to both of you go back and forth, cracked up. You sound like an old married couple.
Hey, as long as you know that I'm the man in the relationship, that's all you need to know.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's fine.
All right, so getting back on Matt LaFleur to the Packers, I just think that Matt LaFleur is just not ready to be a head coach yet. I do see that Aaron Rodgers is getting older. That's going to be the distinct challenge, is being able to get Aaron Rodgers to be engaged. I think that his biggest problem over the past couple of years is that due to the problems with Mike McCarthy when he was there, I think Aaron Rodgers just completely became disengaged and just started calling his own plays. He needs somebody who's going to come in and shake him out of apathy. Unlike Mike, I do think that the Packers can possibly make the NFC Championship again, but they're going to have to go in and to overload some talent. They need to come in and definitely address the receiver core again. Even though they have a couple of good wide receivers, they still need to make them get better, help them develop, and also give them some help on the defensive end. So before coming in does check off a few boxes, but not all of them. I still think Packers fans need to be concerned.
All right, I got two more teams, and then I got two coaching names I want to talk about.
Are you good, CJ, or do you got to go?
I still got a couple more minutes. I'm good.
Okay, go ahead,
All right,
Steve.
let's go Dolphins. What are they going to do? Rex Ryan's name's being thrown around. Is he going to get it? CJ, it's your division there, the AFC East. Is Ryan going to get that? Is that a good thing if he does? What are the Dolphins looking at?
Personally, I don't think that Rex Ryan is going to get the job. I think that I could see Miami going after maybe a Chris Richard, defensive coordinator for the Cowboys. I could see that possibly happening. Don't rule out Todd Monken going down there if he ends up interviewing with them. So Miami's situation is a little bit fluid, but Rex Ryan's not going there.
Okay, Mike.
It doesn't matter because their owner and their ownership group is horrible. Whoever goes there will fail. Darren Risley.
All right, okay, let's
special
go
teams
now.
coach.
CJ,
I was going to give you something. Go ahead, Steve. Go ahead. Just interrupt me.
No, look, we're done with them. That's Dolphins. I was just going to check because they haven't really even mentioned anybody, and I don't think they've even started their search. I'm sure they started it.
I gave you some names, but you didn't want to listen.
All right, give us some names, Mike.
Darren Risley. And I think the other one that he said, I forgot the guy's name now because you screwed me up by constantly interrupting me.
See how easy it is to do, CJ?
Chris Richard.
Oh,
I think Chris Richard will be the head coach there.
Okay. All right, so we're in agreement on that.
All right. So now let's listen to the trash talk start right now. What are the wonderful Cincinnati Bengals going to do, Mike?
Eric Bieniemy will be the head coach. I was told that this morning from somebody in the Bengals front office. As soon as the Chiefs lose, Eric Bieniemy will be named the new head coach. You heard it here first on The Grueling Truth.
You know what? That would actually be a good hire for you guys.
I know. It doesn't matter because we'll turn him into a joke after a few years, but he'll be all right the first couple of years.
So either that or a raging alcoholic, one of the two.
Yeah, he'll either be shooting up or a drunk 5 years from now, and it'll destroy his career.
And let me stay with it. Mike, what do they do with Hugh Jackson?
Hugh Jackson's gone. This whole coaching staff, from what I'm told, is going to be gone.
Okay. All right. CJ, any comment on the Bungles? I mean,
No. I'm staying as far away from this one as possible.
Well,
this is Mike's wheelhouse. This is all him.
Dude, you know what? This is the thing. CJ, how old are you?
I am 46. I'm going to be 47 this year. God willing.
Is it safe to say that you've never seen your beloved New York Jets at a Super Bowl?
I have never seen my beloved New York Jets in the Super Bowl.
All right, so when you want to make fun of the Bengals, realize this. I've sat at a Super Bowl my team has played in twice. Just so you know.
You have.
Just so you know.
You have.
All right. Steve?
You have. You have made it there, my friend.
And it's really cool, just so you know.
That I've seen the Jets win a Super Bowl on television. I didn't go to the game, but I saw them win one on television. And my beloved Colts have 2 Super Bowl Lombardi trophies.
No, they don't. They have one.
Yes, they do.
Really?
Nope.
Where was the parade in Indianapolis in 71 when they won their first one? Was there a parade in Indianapolis?
See, CJ, here's the deal. He doesn't get it that the Indianapolis Colts have been in existence longer than the Baltimore Colts ever were.
It doesn't matter. You're a freaking idiot.
They're still the Colts organization.
Wait, no. Just tell me where that Super Bowl parade was held. Was it in Baltimore, where the Colts were born?
Still the Colts organization.
The Colts are bastard stepchilds. Their mom and dad basically didn't want them anymore, so they got kicked out with the Ursays, their old drunken uncle, and had to move to Indianapolis, which is a cesspool compared to where they played before.
That's why the Maryland State Police chased them all the way to the line that night, that snowy night in December when they
chased them to
off
the
at
line
midnight on the Mayflower.
No,
Band
they just wanted to make sure.
They
just wanted to make sure that y'all didn't steal nothing as you left.
we stole Baltimore's Lombardi trophy. We got that. It's the Colts
exactly.
Office, so it's there.
So don't sit there and act like your team has won 2 Super Bowls when they haven't. They've won 1.
Listen, if you guys really want futility, okay, let me tell you a little bit about the New York Jets. Okay, the New York Jets were originally the bankrupt. Yes, the bankrupt New York Titans.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Weeb Eubank. Okay, Weeb Eubank had to come and rescue them out of futility with his 5-year plan, which actually took 6 years. But it actually brought them to NFL relevancy, and it was the Jets' victory over the Colts, which actually predicated the merger into what we have today as the NFL.
Yeah, so what's your
first
point?
AFC team to win. The Jets.
I hate to tell you this, but the merger was already in the process of happening, CJ. So that was going to happen either way.
Yeah, that was, but I think the Jets beating the Colts actually kind of sped things up a little bit.
Do you think maybe the game was fixed so that merger would be worth more money to the
No, not at all. Not at all.
I think,
and I've got good sources.
Lit Johnny Unitas up.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
Johnny Unitas didn't play until late in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, Earl Morrall played. It was Earl Morrall, wasn't it? Didn't Earl Morrall play?
Yeah, good thing
Earl Morrall
played.
Yep.
Second. And Matt Snell should have been the MVP of the game.
I watched the game. Matt Snell, the Jets.
I've watched the game. What's that mean?
Okay. All
right. I've got a beautiful DVD version from NBC 20 years ago.
Were you old enough?
No, I wasn't born yet, but I've seen the game more recently than you have. Plus, you're so damn old, you wouldn't be able to see it anyways.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, man.
Okay. All right. Okay, guys, let me get both your opinions on this. Josh McDaniels. This guy's turning down. Now, he said he's not even willing to interview for anything now. Is he just heir apparent to the Patriots?
Yeah.
Yes.
If he wasn't, he'd have been the Colts coach last year. And the great thing about that is this.
The best movie he was walking away from us.
It means after Bill Belichick leaves, the Patriots are going straight in a shitter, and they'll never be good again.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
Is he a good coach or not, CJ?
No,
he's not.
He's not, but he still may be able to win the AFC East.
No!
Be the first 6-10. 6-10 will win the AFC East.
Touche, well played, Goodpaster.
Oh, my goodness. So put it this way. The AFC East will probably, if Josh McDaniels takes over the Patriots, the AFC East will see its first 6-10 or 7-9 division winner ever.
Maybe. Because the Dolphins
that's only because
the Jets always
Belichick's been in there Brady's been there the last 12 years, 15 years.
All right.
So,
Since
okay,
CJ doesn't have
Mike,
much time, you want to get into ranking the top 8
let me ask one more
quarterbacks?
question. One more question, just yes or no, to both of you. Then CJ, I know you got to go. We're going to go over the top 8 quarterbacks.
How much time do you have, CJ? Because I know that this is probably the highlight of your life. So.
Oh, I'm good. Keep going.
All right.
Well, good. You can listen to Goodpaster's idiot rankings of the quarterbacks too. Then you stay on for that. You might as well now. What the hell?
Well, let's go, Risley. You gonna ask a question?
Yeah. Here's the question: is this the last year for Brady and Belichick?
No, I do not think so.
I think you got at least 1 year left.
They both come back?
Yeah.
Yes, they do. I think they both come back one more year. I think that if the Patriots make the AFC Championship game, which I'm sorry, it's not a given against the LA Chargers.
They won't make it. They're going to get blown out.
Yeah, I think they will too. I think that they will predicate one more year and say they have quote unquote unfinished business, and that's how they're going to sell it. Because I think that when Brady goes, Belichick is going to go. So when they both go, they're going at the same time.
Possibly.
Okay. All right. CJ, you got time to stay on for the ranking of the quarterbacks? You got to go.
I actually got to take off. Thank you so much, guys, for having me on. This was fun, and we need to do this again.
All right. See you, CJ.
All righty. Take care, guys.
CJ, thanks for joining us.
You bet, Steve.
You know what, Steve? I mean, we've had other guests before, but, I mean, if you look at it, if you rate CJ, he was much better than Lucas Weiss, don't you think?
Oh, God, yeah. Lucas is a punching bag. I mean, that's how you look at Lucas. It's just like he just anything he says, you can just punch him with it. It's like, really, Lucas, are you really going to say that?
Yeah.
Anybody who thinks hockey is the greatest sport in the world, it's a great sport. Don't get me wrong. I know we do a lot of hockey on the. Yeah. Well, he thinks curling is a sport, but he's going to find out the Iditarod's a sport if he wants to be on our station again. Okay, Mike, here we go. I found your article that you got to rank yours on our website.
So I want your ranking.
No, because I kind of agree with yours, but you wrote the whole write-up. I'm just let's go down the list. Let's start off with who do you think is the 8th best of the 8 quarterbacks? Let me just give them to you. Breeze, Brady, Luck, Foles, Mahomes, Rivers, Prescott, and Goff, okay? That's the 8 quarterbacks left. Yeah. And you've got a ranking of them here. And let's start off with who's your number 8 quarterback left in the game?
Jared Goff.
And why?
Because I don't think he's very good. I think he's gotten by on Todd Gurley. They called he off. If you look at him the first 8 games of the season, he was starting to change my mind. The last 6 or 7 games, he's not. I think they're going to have trouble with the Cowboys. I think that game's a toss-up. And I think it's a toss-up because I don't trust Jared Goff in this situation. He lost a home playoff game last year to the Falcons where he didn't really burn it up. I wasn't huge on Goff coming out. I don't think Goff – if you were to give me a list of these 8 guys and tell me who doesn't belong, Jared Goff would be that guy.
I will say, and I live in L.A., obviously, so I see a lot of Jared Goff. He seems like he's a front-running quarterback. When things were going good for the Rams early in the year, he was doing fine. But when things started, I don't want to say coming unglued because they didn't really come unglued, but, they started getting challenged a lot more than they were early in the part of the year. He started making mistakes that we didn't see early in the year. Is that just by not being experienced enough yet to be, a Super Bowl-worthy quarterback?
I just don't think he's very good.
Okay. So you've got him at number 8.
Simple. Yeah.
All right. Number 7. Who's your number 7 quarterback?
Dak Prescott, Dallas Cowboys. I like Prescott. It's just these other 6 guys are elite quarterbacks, I think. And Prescott is a guy, especially in the playoffs. A lot of this ranking has to do with what they've done in the playoffs, what I think they will do in the playoffs. And with Dak Prescott, he's a tough guy that can will his team to win. He's had limited playoff experience, but 2 years ago he played well and lost to Green Bay. That was on the defense, not on him. He played well last week. I thought he willed that team with his feet and his arm at the end of that game. I would put Dak Prescott at number 7.
Yeah, looking at the 8 left, it's hard to move him only because the rest of the people above him are probably just better than him. Although, like you said, he's a tough kid. I think that he's going to overachieve probably as much as any quarterback of the 8 left in the game. I just think the Cowboys are a very dangerous team. I've said this all along. But what's the one comment you have on Dak Prescott, the one weakness you've seen that you said on our show many times?
He doesn't throw people open.
Doesn't throw people open. Explain that. Explain that, what that means to people.
Well, that means that if a receiver's covered, he cannot throw the ball to where they're going and hit them open. He's got to have them open. And it's why a couple years ago, behind the best defensive line, and see, Lucas Weiss says that Mahomes is worse than Prescott, but that is absolutely absurd. But he is Canadian, and they don't really have football up there except for the CFL. And when I look at this, Patrick Mahomes can throw you open. Now, Patrick Mahomes to me is scary because he's a little loose with the ball, and I think he's going to turn it over, and I think it's going to cost him one of these next few weeks. But Prescott is a guy that when you had an offensive line that could give him plenty of time for guys to get open, was awesome. Now, he's just a good quarterback because he doesn't throw people open. It's something that can be developed.
Okay.
But it's been 3 years and it hasn't been developed now, so you got to wonder if it's ever going to develop.
Yeah, and I agree with your assessment of I'd say Dax. I started to like him. I mean, at first I thought he was, a Jerry Jones product and just a sell job, but I like him. I just think the guys above him are just better. In terms of Mahomes, right now, Mahomes, I agree, is probably of the 8 quarterbacks you have, probably the most scariest quarterback because he plays so loose and, and he's not experienced it yet, that things could go Saturday. He could be great. I mean, he could be great Saturday at 3:30 or 4:30 whenever they play the Colts. Or he could just all of a sudden, the weather's supposed to be inclement. There's supposed to be bad weather coming in the Kansas City area. And I know you'll talk about that and how that favors the Colts with their offensive line and their running game. But anyway, let's move on to the number 6 quarterback you have on your list.
6 to me is Phillip Rivers.
Really? This surprises me. This surprises me. I thought you thought him better.
Yeah, I do when he was younger. What I see now, though, is the last 4 or 5 weeks, I don't think he's played that well. I don't think he played well against the Ravens. It's hard to have a ton of confidence in him. I think he's got some studs around him, and I think that next week, when we rank the top 4 quarterbacks left, he will be one of those 4 quarterbacks. And I think he's going to beat the Patriots. I think he's going to have a huge game. But right now, the way he is playing, his history of playoff games, mainly more what he's done lately is what I'm basing that off of.
How did he look against Baltimore?
He didn't look good. I mean, he threw for under 200 yards. They won that game with their defense.
Okay. All right. So he wasn't the reason why. All right. Your number 5 quarterback?
Patrick Mahomes. To me, Patrick Mahomes, he's hard to rate. No playoff experience. If he's as good in the playoffs as he was the regular season, he's a top 2 or 3 guy, and they could win the Super Bowl. I got to see it before I believe it. I rank him higher than Rivers and Prescott and Goff. I don't know why, other than the fact that I'm just going off of what we've seen this regular season.
Do you think Mahomes has faced a tough front 4 or a great secondary, or is he kind of cakewalked himself through this season and been able to be the free-flow style that he is?
He has, and he lost to the Chargers. He also beat the Chargers once. The problem is this. It has nothing to do with anything other than this is playoff football. Playoff football is worlds different than regular season football. Now, he may come out and be just as good. Hell, he could be better in the playoffs. But I'm guessing the way he plays, he won't. To me, he plays like Brett Favre, and that didn't work out too good for Brett Favre in most instances. Not in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm hoping. Obviously, being a Colts, fan, I'm hoping that he doesn't prove that theory wrong. He comes out, but will the bad weather? I mean, if there is bad weather in Kansas City, which they're calling for it. I mean, there's a storm front coming through, rain or sleet or snow or whatever.
We don't know, Steve. He played at Texas Tech. I don't think there's any bad weather games to judge him off of. So the reason I got him in the middle is because everything is conjecture, good or bad with him. So I'm going to sit him in the middle. We'll see what happens this week.
Okay. Number 4 quarterback?
Nick Foles. And I think there you base this off intangibles. He wins. He wins playoff games. Last week he threw 2 picks, but still at the end of the game he made the plays to win the game. And there's just something magical about the dude. I mean, you have a kid miss a 42-yard field goal that normally he makes. I think this is a dangerous game for the Saints, and we'll get into that tomorrow when we pick the games. But I think it would have been better. I think it's better to play the Saints tomorrow than it is to play them next week or in the Super Bowl, because they've had basically 3 weeks off where their best guys have not played. So this is set up that if somehow the Eagles can get hot early and catch New Orleans, maybe asleep a little or not completely ready to go, they could get up 10, 14 points, and they've got a defensive line here that can cause some trouble. So I think anybody that thinks the Saints are going to get destroyed by the Eagles, I think they're going to be sadly mistaken. I think the Eagles are going to be in this game all the way, and a lot of that's because of Nick Foles. And if they trade Nick Foles, that's on them, because Carson Wentz to me is Jared Goff. And
and that was my next part of the question is, between Wentz and Foles, who do the Eagles need to keep now?
They need to keep Foles, but they're going to keep Wentz because of the money. But the problem with Wentz is
because they're paying Wentz too much money?
He was the first pick in the draft, and if you look at him, his first rookie camp, he had bruised ribs, had trouble with that. He's missed games so many times. I mean, the only advantage you could see from keeping Carson Wentz over Nick Foles is that Carson Wentz is younger. But Carson Wentz, even if you look at him in college, I think his junior or senior year, he missed like almost the entire season, or did miss the entire season with injuries. So I think you've got to look at the injury issue. And Nick Foles, when you look at him, Carson Wentz looks like the better quarterback. But when it gets down to it, I don't see how you can get rid of a guy who last year comes in 2/3 of the way through the season, leads your team to a Super Bowl, beats the Patriots, plays his ass off. Then he comes back this year, and your team is completely out of the playoffs. Wentz gets hurt. Foles comes in. They get hot. They beat the Rams in L.A. They beat the Bears at Chicago, and now they're in a divisional playoff game. In a fair world, that earns you the job. But we also know we don't live in a fair world.
Right. Has Wentz played an entire season without getting hurt?
No.
No, I don't think he has either.
I mean, his first year he played every game, but he was injured.
Played injured, okay.
Yeah.
All right, your number 3 quarterback?
Andrew Luck. Luck, to me, if he just doesn't turn the ball over, they're going to beat the Chiefs. I think he's special. And I've seen a lot of people rip him because they said he doesn't win a big game. Hasn't really been in a big game yet. But the thing about winning in big games is he got to an AFC Championship game. Can't tell me the divisional playoff where they beat Denver in Denver when they had Peyton Manning wasn't a big game. He lost to the Patriots badly, but the Patriots were just a better team. I mean, that was probably the Patriots' last great team. Luck has great feet. He has the ability to extend the play. He has great pocket presence. He can make every throw on the field. My only concern with him, and the only reason I rank him at 3rd instead of in the top 2 right now, is the fact that he hasn't won the Super Bowl, and it's hard to ignore the 2 guys I got above him.
Right.
But,
yeah,
I mean, also, I think he's a stud. And there's only a few guys I would take over that. And you get a lot of people that tend to rip on Andrew Luck. But there's also a lot of people that think Cam Newton's a good quarterback. So all those people are wrong both ways, because Andrew Luck can play quarterback in the NFL. He's as good as anybody there. And if you're going with quarterbacks under the age of 30, the 2 best are Russell Wilson and Andrew Luck.
Okay. Would it be fair to say that, and I don't mean necessarily football IQ, which probably goes hand in hand, but would you say that probably Luck might be the most intelligent of the 8 quarterbacks?
No, I would never say that. That would be ignorant. Because Tom Brady is the smartest. Drew Brees is the smartest. There's nobody like Brees and Brady.
Would be higher. Their football IQ would be higher, but I'm talking about, let's face it, Brees went to Purdue. Luck went to Stanford. Little difference there.
Well, you know what? Tom Brady
went to Michigan.
Brady went to Michigan, which means he's probably can't even read, but he can read a defense.
Yeah.
And yes, Lucas, I know you're listening, and that was all for you.
Yeah. All right, your number 2 quarterback. We're down to the big 2. Who do you got at number 2?
My number 2 is Tom Brady. I have concerns putting him there. I don't think he's looked quite as good this year, but I think it's more that, you lose Josh Gordon. Rob Gronkowski is not what he was. And really, if Gronk's not what he was, they're in trouble. Last year, Amendola got him out of a lot of situations. He's no longer – they're in trouble. I think they're in trouble this week. But still, I would never discredit Tom Brady enough to put him below number 2 on this list under any circumstances at this time, at least.
Okay, here's the million-dollar question about Tom Brady. Would Tom Brady have been Tom Brady without Bill Belichick?
Well, this is the other big question. Would Bill Belichick be Bill Belichick without Tom Brady?
Right.
Would Joe Montana be Joe Montana without Bill Walsh? Would Terry Bradshaw be Terry Bradshaw without Chuck Noll? The thing you do notice is when you list the 10 greatest quarterbacks of all time, outside of Peyton Manning, there is no quarterback on that list where you don't have a legendary coach. So they go hand in hand, and you don't find legendary coaches that don't have legendary quarterbacks. You gotta have both to be legendary, And Peyton Manning, if he has Bill Belichick instead of Tony Dungy, may have 4 or 5 Super Bowl rings, but he didn't. He had to deal with Jim Moore and Tony Dungy, who are good football coaches, but they're not Hall of Famers. And I know Tony Dungy got in the Hall of Fame, but we all know he didn't deserve it. He just didn't. It's a joke that Tony Dungy is a Hall of Famer. But that's all I got to say about that. That's my Forrest Gump.
Yeah. All right. And obviously your number 1 quarterback then in the 8 left is?
Drew Brees. Set an NFL completion percentage record of 74.4. I don't see what you could want more in a quarterback. He has a triple-digit career postseason passer rating. Even most of the games where he's lost in the playoffs, it's not because he's played poorly. He's a guy
yeah, and he's done it.
They had the playoff loss to the 49ers where he throws for like 400 yards. Colin Kaepernick outplayed him. Yeah, really, if you're listening and you think Colin Kaepernick sucks, he outplayed Drew Brees in the playoffs and beat him like 42-34 once. So you're a freaking idiot if you don't think Colin Kaepernick's better than Matt Barkley and some of the trash that's out there playing quarterback right now. But that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah. Okay. One last question on this subject. Of these 8 names, a new NFL franchise is going to Lawrenceburg, Indiana. You're going to be the head coach. But let's play hypothetically here. And the 33rd new franchise is awarded to Lawrenceburg, Indiana. And you have your access to any one of these 8 quarterbacks, and you want to start winning immediately, right now, and you want to be consistently winning. Of the 8 quarterbacks you've listed in your top 8, who do you take? You can take any one of them. Any one of them's got to go to you, whoever you want.
And I'm coaching the team?
Well,
What makes a difference?
Well, it's your team. All right, it's your team. You're the owner of the team, but they say, hey, Mike, we're giving you a franchise in Lawrenceburg, Indiana, and we're going to let you take these 8 quarterbacks. You can pick any one of them.
You're not going to like my
whatever
answer
team you take.
because my answer is Patrick Mahomes. And my answer is Patrick Mahomes because of this. Hold on. He did not have an injury that kept him out for almost 2 years. He's not 29. He's 23. That 6 years is a big difference if I'm just starting a team. I'm not convinced Mahomes would be an NFL legend. I'm convinced if I coached him, he would be. So that's why I would go with Patrick Mahomes.
Okay. And you being a quarterback coach and being an arena football coach and coaching quarterbacks a lot at the professional level, what is the average time for really an NFL quarterback to become consistently effective in the NFL?
if he's a first-round draft pick, it better be in the first year or two. Anymore, most of these guys, if you look at them, Breeze was a starter after a couple years and was effective. Brady was a backup, got an injury, so 2 years, he's effective. Luck was effective immediately. Foles, I think his first year, he was like 29 touchdowns and an interception. Mahomes has been effective immediately. Phillip Rivers was effective pretty much immediately. Prescott was immediately. Jared Goff had Jeff Fisher, so we won't hold that against him. But when you look at this, if a guy is special at the quarterback position, he's usually going to be special right away. And if you look through the history, Dan Marino was special right away. Joe Montana took a little while, but I think a lot of times you get guys like Joe Montana, and since they're a third-round pick, guys don't really trust them as much. They don't force them into the action as quickly. So Montana started his first game his rookie year in '79 against the St. Louis Cardinals. Started a couple games that year. Started more in '80, but they still had Steve DeBerg they were going back and forth with. But '81 was his first real season where they gave him a shot, and he goes to the Super Bowl. So I think if a guy's special, he's probably going to be good right away. Big Ben was, 12-4, 13-3 his first year. So when you look at it, guys like Josh Rosen, who sucked their first year, usually don't get a whole hell of a lot better. I mean, there's guys like Terry Bradshaw, who it took 5 or 6 years to establish himself as a starter. But then again, he was a first-round pick, and I think the year before that they'd picked Terry Hanratty in the first or second round. So that was kind of a quarterback battle between those two. And then they got Jefferson Street Joe Gilliam, who was one of the first black starting quarterbacks in the NFL in like 73 or 74. So he had some competition with him. And I don't think Bradshaw, even though I do think he belongs towards the bottom of the top 10 or somewhere in the top 15, just because of what he did in Super Bowls and how he never lost, I think the majority of time, these guys, if you don't see it by the second or third year, you're probably not going to see it. And that's why you see Baker Mayfield this year. For some reason, they sit him out because they don't think he's ready. As soon as they play him, they win.
Yeah. I think the passing rules and everything, the quarterback protection has changed a lot too. To the time when guys like Bradshaw played, the game was a little more physical on the quarterbacks.
They changed the rules on contact and stuff. But you also, when Bradshaw played, when Stabler played, when Anderson played, all these guys played, Bart Starr, you didn't have near as many coverages teams ran either. So you may not get hit as much, but you're going to have a lot more stuff defensively in the secondary and up front thrown at you than what was thrown at you 30 or 40 years ago. So when people tell me, well, Tom Brady couldn't have played back then because he'd got hit more. Yeah, but Tom Brady also would have played against predominantly man and cover 2 defenses. He would have picked those apart. So you might have been able to hit him, but he's going to pick you apart. And if you're going to run man against him, and Bill Belichick's his coach, they're going to run some quick crossing routes. They're going to pick you apart. You're never going to hit him anyway.
Yeah, well, and I'm smart enough to know that any one of these 8 guys will adapt to any kind of culture and environment they're playing in.
Jared Goff won't.
I mean, well, Goff may be the lone exception, and maybe even Dak Prescott. I don't know. But
Dak
any of the
has to be in a specific offense to be successful, but he is.
Right.
So
the other 6, though, you look at and say, whatever you threw them into, they would adapt and be great quarterbacks still.
Yeah.
It would be my opinion. I'm a novice compared to you. Mike, I'm out of questions. I really, I'm talked out. What do you want to talk about? Anything you want to talk about or say? What are we doing tomorrow?
I just want to remind people that tomorrow Anthony Servino will be back. We may have a special guest with him also to predict the divisional playoff round, which I got a few upsets picked. And I know most people don't because most of these games, the teams are favored by 5, 7, 8 points. But I think we're going to see 4 very competitive games this weekend. So tomorrow, catch me, Steve, Anthony Servino from the FF Face-Off. We will be back at noon live to go ahead and walk through these 4 games, break them down, pick them. I want to remind you that also tonight we will have a Legends of Baseball show with former Major League pitcher Jerry Royce, who won over 200 games in his career with the Dodgers, the Pirates, a few other teams. Will be on to join me to talk about his legendary baseball career at 8 o'clock Eastern on thegruelingtruth.net. Tomorrow night, immediately after the Indiana-Maryland basketball game, you can catch me, Steve Risley, and Colin Hartman on the Indiana Basketball Show. So make sure you check all of that out. Go to Facebook, find us on Facebook at The Grueling Truth. Find us at Twitter at The Grueling Truth. Follow us, retweet us, tell Steve that he's a moron, tell Steve that he's very intelligent. You can do either one. But
we have a website too, thegruelingtruth.net.
I know, which I brought up repeatedly plugging the shows tonight.
Did you? Okay.
So,
all right.
But remember, Jerry Royce, former Major League Baseball pitcher, tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. Me, Steve, and Anthony will be in tomorrow to talk NFL playoffs. Make sure you join us at noon on thegruelingtruth.net. You can hear all of our shows on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, wherever you find sports podcasts. You'll find The Grueling Truth. So for CJ DeSimmone, Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.